If I remember right, dude, this was a pick for best of the worst from your list because I think you were more familiar with this cluster of shows that kind of exist in that same shared universe, right? We were just talking about that.
Yeah, this is kind of like
Warehouse
this.
13.
Yeah, they're kind of like a cluster that was a part of the sci-fi, getting their shows going after the sci-fi kind of got going in like the early 2000s.
I forgot there's a Sci-Fi Channel original. This is in-house programming from them.
Yeah,
Maybe even before the name change from Syfy to syfy, or maybe
yeah,
this was like a headline syfy, syfy. Maybe I don't remember when that
yeah,
happened because you got this Eureka. What was the one I just said? Alphas is they're all kind of lumped in there together, and then there's a bunch of other
mhm.
shows that just feel like that, like you said, that early 2000s kind of vibe. Grimm is another one that feels procedurally like this show a lot, where it's like a case
Yeah,
of
but that
week.
was network TV.
Oh yeah, that was definitely network TV. I would say, but that vibe, it's like Law and Order, but with supernatural elements to it, where they wrap something up, and then every now and again they hint at some long-term character development. You can see relationships. I mean, we definitely saw that with the 2 episodes we're going to talk about here tonight for Warehouse 13. But it's not like streaming shows. How every streaming show is basically here's the 10 episodes. It's like a super long movie, and that's all you get. You know, but definitely the vibe is completely different. Completely. So I wanted to get it out there at the beginning of our chat, because I think we're on the same page here with this, is neither of us watched Warehouse 13 consistently or a lot. It's something that kind of just existed around us. I know you said you watched a bit with your dad, right?
Yeah, my dad was a big fan of the show, and when I was home, we would watch it, but I was never one who followed the show.
Right. And I would say the same thing about Eureka. I've never seen a minute of Eureka, but I always knew what it was.
Now,
And I always knew what
Eureka,
Alphas
I
was.
watched Eureka. I've seen probably
Oh, that's
every
right.
episode. Eureka was
Right.
my show.
True. I remember you saying that was your jam. So maybe we'll probably cover that, on best of worst of soon. I think we got another one planned for in between, but we're definitely going to get to Eureka. I remember a little bit about alphas too. Wasn't it like the Sci-Fi Channel's take on like mutants or something like that? Or they all had powers or something like that. Thus, they were alphas. They were like mutant superhero secret agents or something. I don't remember.
That's another one
For a
I
while.
really didn't watch. So
Yeah, the most I remember about alphas is that it's one of those shows that got canceled like abruptly, so it ended on a cliffhanger and people got pissed. It was typical. It sounds like a Fox show in a way, doesn't it?
yeah,
Got that going on. But
Fox had a lot of those type of shows.
and a lot of them I like. A lot of them I like. Space Above and Beyond is probably, and Firefly are notoriously the two of them that I'm most pissed about. But all right, dude, let's kick into best of gear. So the best of episode, funny story, guys, because we can never say anything according to the rules on this channel. I had to call King Z last night in a panic at like 11:30. Not a good look for me. Worst look for him because he didn't get back to me till today around lunch. That my initial plan for the best of episode could not really happen because I came up against a time crunch, and the episode I had picked was part 2 of a 2-parter, which completely out of context would not have worked at all. So I went back and I looked and I picked another episode. And then lo and behold, that episode was part 1 of the 2-parter when I pulled it off the list that we consult because it didn't have a part 1, part 2 thing going. So I go back to the well and I say, all right, King, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do series 5, season 5, episode 6. About an hour goes by and he gets back to me and he says, dude, that's the series finale, right? And I'm like, whatever. Like, what can we do? It's the top 3. These are the top 3 episodes listed on episode ninja. Whatever. And I don't have time today at work to go back and watch more stuff. So this is what we're going to do. We are aware that this is the series finale. So we're going to watch this, engage it, not only for its quality, but if we could watch it without the context of having been diehard fans of the show and kind of take anything, of like emotional value away from it as it wraps up. Because, most shows have finales that are hit or miss, I would say. I don't think anybody ever really sticks it. Some do, some don't. I mean, Breaking Bad, in my opinion, kind of stuck an ending there. Other shows in genre like Battlestar Galactica, they kind of flub it a bit. Shows like Lost, shows like The Sopranos, Seinfeld, like going way back. It's tough. Endings are tough, So we're going to have an interesting spin on this best of worst of, but it's episode 6 in the 5th season, and I don't remember what the title was. You remember what the title was?
Endless.
Endless, that's right. Harkening back to the King's tagline there, because they kind of open and close on a nice little bookend there with that setup, where Pete Latimer takes the job. and he's invited to become part of an organization that has endless wonder. It'll be a job full of endless wonder, so they tell him. So it ends and it has a little bookend, but the episode has an interesting structure to it. And at first, I thought we were going to get screwed into a clip montage episode, and they kind of did that, but at least they shot new stuff. Like they didn't go full on Seinfeld with it, with like the flashback. What did you think of the format for that? They're all just kind of sitting around. Maybe you could explain the premise a little bit more.
So to understand Warehouse 13, you have to understand the warehouse. The warehouse travels between the most powerful nations at the time, and it's where everything that is kind of supernatural and don't belong in the regular world to keep the balance right is stored. Think of where the ark
Indiana
was.
Jones.
Yeah, where Indiana Jones, the ark was. There's going to be studied by top men. I think that's kind of where they got the idea.
Top
men.
Yeah, of course.
Dude,
every single time the camera sweeps back and it's just rows and rows of stacks. Of course, it's Indiana Jones. The only thing they didn't do is have the one guy walking away from it with the ominous music rising. You know.
So they need agents that go out, find these anomalies, and bring these artifacts back and store them in the warehouse. Also maintain the warehouse. At a time when the warehouse is after it's been there for a while, it goes away because it has kind of like repower, and then it will come back, and then it'll be warehouse 15 or 14 at that point. So this was the end of the series where the warehouse was getting ready to go. One of the things they do is that they have the original round table from King Arthur.
Touch.
Yep.
Touch.
And you have to touch, and it looks at your defining moment as an agent, and it records it. And they started off by watching one where they got the Jack the Ripper's lantern, and then they kind of caught Jack the Ripper in that type thing. So this was, and then it was like, and it was really funny because like, I guess there'll never be a need for a Warehouse 13 because the sun never sets on the English Empire.
That was pretty good.
And the British Empire, that was it.
British Empire, yep. That was a nice touch there.
Yeah. And then they're like, why are we watching? Is it like movie night or something? And they're like, no, it's time to record everyone's greatest moment. It happens when the warehouse is getting ready to move. And this really upsets Pete Latimer, pretty much one of the two main leads. Because I think it was
both stayed. Who were both there for all 5 seasons. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, they were there for all 64 episodes. There was only 3 people who were there for all 64 episodes.
Yeah, them two and Artie, right? It would have been them two and Artie. Yeah, and it was cool because when we watch these kind of shows, like when we watch Sliders in particular, we're like, you can see where this show went off the rails. Like they had major casting changes, like at the end of season 2 or season 3, like halfway through its run, and everything just kind of falls apart. But this show kept its core cast for that many seasons, 5 seasons or whichever. And then they added a couple of new characters along the way, and including they added CCH Pounder, who I love in everything she does. She's great. Like she just has a presence to her. It's always cool when she shows up in any role, you know? But yeah, it was movie night with King Arthur's round table.
So Pete gets mad. He's going to leave. He's going to try to find a way to stop the warehouse from leaving. And then, so the first one to go was Claudia. Claudia was the first one to put her hand on there. And then kind of, you saw like a whole bunch of like key moments. And then it went to her defining moment, which was like a full clip from another show that they were in where they're all tap dancing.
Was it a full clip from another show? That's what I didn't know. Like, or was this new stuff that they shot for this show? Each of those segments. I don't know. I don't know if that was part of it, if that was an episode that they did. You know, that's kind of cool.
I do know that some of those clips are from other shows.
Full episodes that had happened.
And like I said, I didn't see that one, and it would have been close to this one where that one happened because she was already chosen to be the next curator, which is CC Pounder's role as Irene Frederick.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. It was a cool little segment. I think it went on a little long, but it's basically this show has a goofy vibe that's completely indicative of the time frame it came out, where I think these kind of shows were goofy on purpose. They enjoyed what they were doing. They weren't meant to be taken like
X-Files serious.
X-Files or what's his name that did the Batman v Superman. We rip on him. Rebel Moon guy. Who's the guy that did Rebel
Oh,
Moon? That's what I'm talking about.
Zachary Schneider.
Zack Snyder, right? Like it's not supposed to be dark and gritty because like this chick's entire segment is we're gonna get tap danced to death by an artifact that's making us tap dance to death and has
Yeah.
like showgirl ghosts or so, whatever they were chasing us to make us do this thing. It was goofy as hell.
Yeah.
But like if you're feeling that vibe, it's kind of fun.
So that was the premise, and then each of the agents put their hand on there, and it shows their defining moment. And then Peter finally comes around. He puts his hand down. It doesn't actually shows a defining moment.
Awesome.
The warehouse was his defining moment because
it
it changed who he was. He went from a arrogant, thinking know-it-all to a person people want to be around. You saw a huge character change of him. His probably was the furthest arc out of all of them.
For sure. No, he had they definitely. I think that if I was to go back and watch this show, and I may at some point, I think that's another thing to point out is that what we saw here was enough for me to want to go back and watch more and just get more of the lore. And I got a lot to say about the lore, definitely when we get to like a later segment here. But yeah, no, Pete for sure, because he even has that. There's some dialogue in this episode where he's like, I was a terrible husband, I was a terrible Marine, I was a terrible Secret Service agent. This job made me a better person. And I don't want that to go away if the warehouse goes away. So, of course, his reaction to the news that they're closing was like over the top, like tirade. I'm going to go, you guys sit around, do the pity party movie night thing. I'm going to go figure out how to solve this problem. And he couldn't understand why nobody else was bothered by it. And no, because honestly, nobody else really did look bothered by it except Artie. Artie had that moment where he's in the stacks by himself and he basically called the warehouse a whore. It was a pretty fairly emotional beat. And I want to go back and watch now because, of course, the warehouse rolls an apple on a breeze. So I want to go back and watch like the pilot episode and see if there's an apple that appears somewhere in the pilot episode that's meaningful. You know what I mean? Like, is that the first artifact that he secured or something? Like, obviously it's significant, but as somebody that didn't watch the show, it's lost on me, which is kind of why I hate not watching things in order, but it's for the fun of the playlist that we're doing this kind of thing.
Yeah,
I'm almost positive it was a bookend. It had to be.
That or it was just like, a gift. Like it's a new beginning type thing.
Nope. Not buying it. Bookend. Callback. Count on it. Mark it down. I'm going to go take a peek. But those two guys, I think in particular, Artie and Pete, when they had their emotional outbursts about the warehouse, I thought that hit pretty good. Even as a as the most casual observer of fans, it hit pretty good for me. Especially Pete's, like you said, where everybody else had it flipped through a bunch of scenes real quick and then landed on one vignette for that person. Pete's was just like 3 minutes of everything, like every good, funny one-liner, every emotional beat, every death of somebody he was around. I think he died a couple of times on the show, it looked like. And then, warehouse magic happens and brought him back. I thought that was pretty good. But and of course, though, as soon as it starts up, what's happening there. It goes on 5 seconds too long, and you're like, okay, I see what's going on here. Pete's the man, but it was still cool.
So, I mean, that was pretty much the whole episode. The end was really well done, where they're getting ready for another mission because they got a ping, which kind of tells them that there's an artifact out there. And then they're looking for it. And then it kind of just shifts. And then the same dialogue's going on. And then you see like a future version of the warehouse. And then you see the tie-in because Claudia's there. And because she's the new curator.
Doing her best CC Pounder impression, which was almost borderline cringe-inducing secondhand. But it was fun. It was pretty. She tried to do the chin back, the tilted head thing that CC can do, But it was cool though. It was all right. And she does the pause, like, "Oh, you guys just reminded me of," and then she disappears. And the guy's like, "I hate when she does that," which I'm sure is something that CC Pounder's character Frederick does. You know what I mean? In current day, So I like the little callback stuff there. Yeah, it was a simple episode. So I guess for discussion purposes, as somebody that didn't watch it straight through. Contextually, was there enough there for you to kind of get the vibe of what they were going for and find it at least moderately cool, moderately effective as a wrap up, as a series finale? What did you think?
I think it was great for a series finale, and I can see why this was the third most favorite show of someone who's a fan of the show, because it brought you back to, I believe, which were from some of the favorite moments from the series and let you relive those moments. So,
when I was with the whole selection of these episodes debacle, right? It's important to point out that when I went back to the site, the way it works is fans, I guess they just vote, and you can see the number of tallies that each episode has, and there were only a couple of hundred votes really separating the top 5. So I don't think we really missed anything big dropping down to be able to get to the first standalone episode for quality purposes. But I wanted to run a comparison by you while we're in the best of, because I know unequivocally when we get to do Firefly, the best episode there is going to be Oxygen, right? The one where Mal's having all the flashbacks to how he met everybody as he's trying to repair the ship running out. Hands down the best episode of Firefly. Not even close. But every minute of that episode is played for like dramatic effects, like serious shit's popping off. Was Warehouse 13's episode that we just did, was that the comedic version of the Firefly episode, or does it not hit funny enough that version? You know what I mean?
It fit to the genre of which Warehouse 13 was. It wasn't a take me serious type of show. So that's why, and it wasn't no one's life on the line. It was just their job. So I think it fit for what Warehouse 13 was instead of what Oxygen was supposed to be.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're saying the Warehouse 13 episode was funny enough to carry it as the non-serious show's finale. It met the bar of expectation for the funny same way. And actually, that episode of Firefly wasn't their series finale. That was like their second to last, I think, or third to last even. But as far as that, the flashback episode, it was as effective in its own vein. Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know. We ran through all the segments. I think the only other big reveal there, they had like the big reveal that Artie had a son, because I guess somewhere, we were talking about lore. Somewhere in the lore, I guess they made it that way. People of different ranks within the warehouse or within the organization could have significant others that knew, like, because it's a secret government agency thing. And then he had a son, and it was a big reveal, I guess, to Claudia that Artie had a son. So I guess that probably would had we seen the whole show. And then the other major reveal, though, character-wise, and everybody probably saw that coming for 5 years, was that Micah had feelings for Pete, which tracks. You know, that's a kind of, and I think maybe they wisely avoided not doing the will they, won't they for 5 seasons, because I don't know how, maybe they flirt with that at some point during the 5, but it seemed like it came to a big shock to both of them when they finally acted on it in this episode to wrap things up. So I thought that was all right.
Yeah, you have to think. I did see the pilot. I went and watched the pilot and they were kind of always competing. They were competing in the Secret Service. They competed when they first got to the warehouse. Who's going to be in charge? Who's going to be the follower type scenario? So they captured their relationship great, and then for it to go from butting heads, always trying to one up each other, being together for 5 years and doing that. Sometimes emotions and feelings do grow from that, and that's what that played into.
That was solid. I didn't know she was also Secret Service because I haven't gone all the way back to watch the pilot yet. I think I might take in a few episodes here. Yeah, I think I should do that because the lore to the show that I got in the bits and pieces from the 2 episodes we watched is really interesting. Like it scratches a really creative, weird sci-fi show kind of itch that I get from time to time. All the artifact stuff aside, we get the little communication device that Artie uses that was basically FaceTime before we had FaceTime proliferated everywhere. We get that. We get the purple goo, like the neutralizer stuff. They call it dousing in episode 3 that we're going to talk about. They get the purple gloves on when they do that. They got demagnetizing bags that they put artifacts in to like shut off their effects or whatever it does. I think that there's enough there for like the magic system that I want to go back and see. But then like you hit on with Claudia having to choose to either become or not become the new curator. They had curators. They mentioned regents at one point in the episode we watched. So there's all this other stuff that happens, and I am interested enough in the show that I think I'd want to go back and check that out. And I think that's a good sign, because I don't think that happens with current shows. I'm going to keep saying that.
Yeah. And
that happens.
For older people, you might recognize this type of story and show type from a 1980s, early 90s show called Friday the 13th, where they had a group of people who were going out there getting cursed and objects and putting it in a vault to keep them from harming others. So this kind of just rehashes that and puts a more sci-fi feel to it, and kind of ties in the whole Indiana Jones thing with the Ark of the Covenant. So
I like that vibe, dude. That's a way throwback for the Friday the 13th show. I guarantee you nobody watching us has seen a minute of that show. Well, maybe our demographic skews a little older to like our bracket, so maybe they have. But it was not I think it only ran a season. It was not around long. But I think this kind of show lends itself to that kind of episode. You know, I know Supernatural had an episode like that where the brothers investigate a case where somebody collected a bunch of cursed objects, kept them in a vault. She passed away, and the idiot's son sold the vault at like an antique store. So they had to go track down all the 6 hilariously cursed objects. One of which was a cursed set of ballet slippers that had some little girl nearly dance her feet off. So I mean, there's some, maybe there's some inspiration there. Who knows? Yeah, I think if working on the strength of what I saw from the best of episode, and knowing that this episode was only a couple hundred votes down from what people voted as the best of the series offerings, which were 3rd season, I think I wrote it down.
3rd season, episode 11 and 12.
11. Right. So I mean, if you get to the middle of your run and people are telling you that there's your best episodes are there, I think you're doing pretty good. You know, so I would tell people to probably check out, I almost called it Eureka, to check out Warehouse 13 just based on the fun factor. It is goofy. There's some bad dialogue in the worst of episode for sure. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But it's exactly what was on TV. It's a time capsule, ironically. Now, this episode was about a time capsule. Watching this show 15 years later feels like like opening a time capsule.
Yeah.
That's best of Warehouse 13, season 5, episode 6. All right, there we go.